Hello, this is Kai Marie, and welcome to Season 2 of the Healing Element Podcast. You are listening to Episode 4. Join me, my special guest, Brandon Jones. He is founder of the Jegna Institute. Today's topic is the impact of continuous racial trauma on the African American community. Hello and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast, a weekly discussion giving you the tools to understand and heal from intergenerational trauma. I am your host, Kai Marie. To find out more information about the topics discussed today, visit kaimarie.com. Hi, this is Kai Marie, and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. So happy that you decided to join us for Season 2. And I have a very special guest coming back for Season 2. We didn't scare him away, Brandon Jones. We are going to be talking about the impact of continuous racial trauma on the African American community. The topic summary: Brandon is joining us for a conversation, and he's going to define the meaning of racial trauma and examine if racial trauma affects how African Americans respond to racial incidents here in the U.S. So this topic could probably go on for hours, but we only have limited time, so we're going to dive into and discuss as much as possible. So Brandon, welcome back to the Healing Element Podcast. For those that may be listening to the first time, can you please share with the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. My name is Brandon Jones. I'm a psychotherapist, professor, and author out of the Twin Cities of Minnesota, so Minneapolis and St. Paul. Born and raised in St. Paul. Yes, we do have Black people in Minnesota. We are here, and just like any other place in the world, especially in the United States, we experience racial trauma, racial battle fatigue, intergenerational trauma, etc., which we'll talk about many of those things today. A little bit of background history on myself. Unfortunately, grew up in a household full of trauma and drama, seen a lot of domestic violence as a kid, grew up poor, even though we didn't think or know that we were poor because we were able to have Sega Genesis and things of that nature, but didn't have a lot of money. And I'm the oldest of three boys, and having to take responsibility very early at a young age was a huge thing for me, taking care of my brothers and stepping in, went as the male figure in the home. Pretty much grew up with a single mom. I did have a stepfather. He was in and out. And when he was in, there was a lot of trauma and hell that he raised. And when he was out, it seemed like we had a normal family. And that was my experience till I was about 12 years old, where he was more in than out. And I ended up leaving to live with my grandmother, stayed with her for 2 years. So all through my middle school, went back home in the ninth grade. Crazy stuff started happening again. Ended up leaving and going to live with my grandmother again and finished off high school with her. Then, during high school, I was a nerd and an athlete. Both of those things helped me get to a pristine university here in Minnesota called the University of Minnesota. I did not play sports, even though I had some athletic scholarships. Originally went to school to be a dentist, almost flunked out my first semester. Switched my major to sociology and been helping people ever since. I have my BA's in sociology. I have a master's degree in community psychology and another master's degree in psychotherapy. And I've been doing therapy now for about 6 years. So actually 7 years. Yeah, we're in 2020. So 7 years now. And I love helping my people. Been doing this trauma work and this healing work for about 10 years. Since 2010 is when I really started to understand it and focus on it and trying to figure out ways to improve folks that look like me and have gone through similar experiences.
Awesome. And Brandon, we've had several conversations. I know I'm constantly sending you stuff like, you believe this? Or tag you in something. So I just want to say, like, you are definitely the go-to person for these type of topics, because not only do you identify the issues, you get to the root cause and also provide solutions for people. And so that is something that we definitely need in our community. A lot of times we all know what the issues are, but then we just keep talking about the issues. But in talking to you, you always bring solutions as well. Like, okay, these are steps that we can start to take
Right.
and we can start to do to try to fix the problem. So that is greatly appreciated and needed in our community as well.
Thank you. Make a note of that so we can come back to talking about why do we get comfortable just talking about the problems and not looking at solutions, because there's reasons for that that
Uh-huh.
deal with trauma. We'll get to that whenever you're
Oh, let me
ready.
make a note. Wait, Brandon, you got to have a pen and pencil.
I mean, all this stuff has reasons. There's reasons why we talk about the problem over and over and over again. Unfortunately, we talk about the impacts of continuous racial trauma. One of the things that we continue to see is Black people being murdered by vigilante whites, by police officers, by each other, etc. And what do we often hear people say in response to that? We often hear say, it's 2020. I can't believe things like this are happening. Or, this ain't 1954. Why are they treating us like this?
Yeah.
There's reasons why psychologically we go back and say those things over and over and over. It's a soothing to the pain because it doesn't connect to the reality that this is our existence, and it has been. And it's not about what used to take place in the 50s, because yes, things have gotten a lot better since then, but that racial that subjugation and that terrorism that takes place has just become more refined and more covert, and it can happen to us, and we don't like to really be honest about that until it hits home. And then when it hits home, it's like, it's 2020. Why are people doing this to us? It's like, well, nothing's really changed. I mean, things have changed, but that racial dynamic of who's superior, who's inferior has not. And
So
yeah,
true.
so
You make me want to just jump right to that. But
no, we can go wherever you want to go.
Well, really quick, when you said that about the system and how it works, one person that I've listened to for years is Neely Fuller.
Yeah.
Always talks about how white supremacy, how it continues to be refined.
Yeah.
It's continuously evolving so that the power dynamics can always stay the same.
Right.
And the thing is that we still kind of operate in 1960s type of
belief systems.
Thinking.
Yeah.
And when the system has now evolved to function and operate in 2020.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we see, I mean, one of the elements of that system, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Fuller myself, is this this anti-Blackness that we have. That's the term that I use. A lot of people use self-hatred. I was going to say that, but I don't even think it's hatred, because we still love each other, we still love being Black, but it's the self-deprecating kind of mindset that we have amongst Black people. And it's and we see it as so many different facets. We could take it in dating. We could take it in how we look at kids when they get in trouble. We can take it at neighborhoods that we're supposed to be in. We can take it at how people take care of their homes or their apartments or their space or their cars. We have this anti-Black mindset and frame when it comes to other Black people. I have it. I have to work on it all the time, because I'm like, man, see, this is why we can't do X, Y, and Z, because we just think like, and then sometimes I have to take myself back and be like, no, you know what the real reason is? It's because of trauma that has taken place. And these people are traumatized to the point where I just feel like it gets to depressing sometimes when I look at people and I see the things that they go through over and over and over, or their children go through, or their children go through. And I'm, as a professional in the mental health space, supposed to help with that. And it's just like, I just see the trauma. But when you're in the thick of it, people don't see it. It's just their life. It's just the norm. And when your norm is to be subjugated, when your norm is to be in toxic stress and trauma and not having a future, or not being able to see something beyond where you come from or where you're at, you are stuck, and you don't dream to have anything else but the small, like your bar is set so low, you just seek to have the lowest rung on the ladder. And unfortunately, the system has been so refined that any amount of success, any amount of progress, any amount of evolution, we see it as white, because we're so caught in this racial framework that everything good is white and everything bad, raggedy, ratchet is Black.
Right.
And guess what? Other ethnicities do the same damn thing. But we are just stuck with it because that's how we were cultivated. That's how we were socialized, is to always think racially and to always accept the lesser of whatever, and just be happy that you got crumbs from the loaf of bread. Don't be happy that you get a slice. Don't even be happy that you got the label. Just be happy with the crumbs that fell off the table. And that's what we have settled with. And I don't like that. I try to evolve my folks and people that look like me all the time and get us to think bigger and utilize our skills, because guess what? When we show our genius, other people come and they utilize it all the time. I'm one of those people, but I would not allow myself to, be a gatekeeper and keep my people back. I allow myself to break through those gates and try to bring as many of us as I can in that makes sense. So, because I'm one of those little Negroes from the hood, those little diamonds in the rough, those little, roses in the concrete. They say, oh, this little black boy is smart. Let's take him and give him this scholarship, or let's put him in this program. And then by the time they start to see me flesh, like, oh shit, we don't know, we should have put him here. We might want to bring him back, right? That's me. I am that prototype. I'm the kid that comes from a single mother household, first generation college student. Didn't test well, but had good grades. In every program you can think about, never went to jail, right? I am that poster child. I mean, they will put me on a billboard and a brochure, on a video really quick, because I am that token. I am a token. I can be, but I don't function as that. So when I'm here, now you got to hear what I have to say, because you brought me to the table. Now I'm at the table. We're going to eat, and this is the way that I'm going to eat in my space. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Some people appreciate it, but a lot of people get uncomfortable. One of the dirty little secrets is a lot of black folks get uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
So, but that's
like,
that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yes, it is.
So I want to get into to talk about, and we did talk about this a little bit in the first season about historical trauma. So I do want to talk a little bit like, how did we arrive to this point? Before we do that, when you were talking about how you could be used as a token, I wanted to just say this point, but as you said, like, you have consciously, you have an awareness that could be how you could be used, but you're saying, no, this is how I'm going to show up in the world. This is how I'm going to choose to use my voice. But that does remind me of how we look at many of the athletes, for example. How they're taking home many times single mom, living in economic hardships, with their community. And so they're taken out of that. There's coach, right, who serves as like a dad figure. And he kind of takes the young boy under his wing, teaches him how to play ball or improve his game. And then you continue to have like these coaches, for some young black boys will continue to have coaches throughout their lives. And so when you have that, which they probably provide some type of stability, right, that maybe they didn't really have at home. And you have that the father figure that maybe you didn't have, and you may be experiencing what you think is love and someone cares about you. So again, that creates a perfect situation for society to then use that young boy to say, oh, look, he came from a challenging environment,
right?
But now, through playing ball, he was able to escape poverty,
right?
And now he's, living this great life and, making all this money. And so because that young black boy doesn't really know or have an awareness of the construct in which he lives, he may say, yeah, I'll be used as a token.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for my coaches, if it wasn't for Nike, if it wasn't for the university or what have you, I wouldn't be here. I would still be, living in the same conditions or in jail, or usually you hear that a lot, like I would be in jail, dead, or something like that.
And this is the refinement. What you're talking about is the refinement of white supremacy, racism, how we want to look at it, right? Because in saying that, the athlete or the young woman or whoever, the young man or young woman, whoever, they're right. If it wasn't for those opportunities, chances are they would be, statistically, they would be in jail. They would have multiple children. They probably would be on some level of government assistance. They might be dead. Me, that's my narrative. I should have about 4 baby mamas right now. I should have at least been in jail twice. I'm dead serious. I should have an addiction to some type of chemical, whether that's weed, pills, alcohol, something, right? I should have some kind of record, some type of record, whatever it is. But I don't have those things because someone was seeing the genius in me and said, hey, this little black boy probably can do something better than where he's projected to go. Right. And that's the truth. But the refinement, the racism and the white supremacy is when you don't know that you are being tokenized and you're being utilized to somebody's advantage, then that's what makes it dangerous. I knew that. I read autobiography of Malcolm X very early. Really my biggest awakening to racism, well, there's probably 2 things. When I was in the 5th grade, I don't know why, I remember that this teacher wasn't my teacher. He was next door to my teacher, but we used to always merge classrooms. And they used to show us these Black history documentaries all the time. I don't know why. I don't remember if there was a lot of Black kids in my class or what, but I just remember watching all these damn slavery documentaries all the time. And we watched this movie called Brother Future. I don't know if you ever heard of that before.
I haven't.
All right, so Brother Future is Brother Future, and I hope this isn't one of those Mandela effect things where I'm like dropping a name and this thing don't even exist. I'm just remembering something that's in like an alternative universe. But there's a movie called Brother Future where they take this young black man time travels back to slavery, and he has this experience of what slavery's like, and it just changes his mind. And I just remember how fascinating that was. Like, damn, my life would be way different if I was a slave, and I never thought about it like that. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years later, I was probably about 13 years old or so, I seen the movie Rosewood. That movie was revolutionary to me because it was like you have these white folks and these Black folks all living in harmony. This white woman tells a lie, and the whole thing just gets shut down. And I was like, holy cow. Because I live in Minnesota. You know, there's little pockets of Black folks, but there's white folks everywhere. You can't escape them. Mm-hmm. So I've always thought, man, if a white girl said that I did anything to her, he did. Like, that was in my head early. And I was terrified of white women for the longest. Now, I have had relations with white women. I've dated white women, but it took a long time for me to get to that level of comfort. And even when I did date a white woman, I was so terrified. Mm-hmm. I was like scared. I was like, should I do this? I felt like I was just a toy to her because I was like, I don't have any leverage. If I do anything wrong, if I try to break up with her, she's gonna tell and say I raped her. Like, I'm on college campus too, so I was like freaking out.
Yeah,
right?
That's real.
But it was a big awakening for me was to just get scared. Now I go to University of Minnesota. There's white folks there, right? And I'm a Black dude. You know, I look like I'm on the football team, even though I ain't. So everybody's cool with me. I'm cool. Everybody's cool. White women coming all over. It's like, oh, who's this brother? Like they'll come, you know, they're coming from all the, you know, the rural areas to the city. They trying to get this Black experience, right? And I'm just pushing them off. Get away. And then finally I get cool with one.
Trying to get this Black experience.
That's a whole nother show. That is a real thing. Okay, that is real. And we have this issue.
I went to Lemoyne College, a Jesuit school in Syracuse, New York. There was no football team, but there was basketball team, lacrosse, and rugby. And
that's all that matters.
I know that's another show.
And it ain't just the women getting the brothers. It's the Black females get the same type of attention because it's
freezing a little bit. Hold on 1 second, guys.
Into me because I seen Rosewood, and those were two revolutionary.
Because you were freezing.
Oh, sorry about that. So for me, I was thinking this is a very dangerous experience for me. So I need to be very mindful because of the movie Rosewood. So I was very race conscious early in my youth that made me just kind of pay attention to things. But reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, what it helped me do is understand that as a Black man, I have to carry myself a certain way, and people will come for my intellectual abilities. And when you're smart, you should not be a tool to other people. And that was a huge lesson for me. And I started to see people. I've won so many awards. It's crazy. You can ask my mom. Every time I win an award, I just send it to my mom. She has a whole china cabinet full of awards just for me. And that's just how it's been. I just always have won stuff just because that's just who I am, I guess. It's just one of those weird things, not trying to humble brag or anything like that. It's just my experience, but also knowing that me also comes with what are you going to do for me, right? It always comes with what are you going to do for me. And I always was very conscious of that, and I didn't want to utilize, you know, other people's ulterior motives to get me sidetracked because they're giving me something. You know, years later, I seen the movie Spook Who Sat by the Door, and I was like, dang, that's kind of how my life is. But I wasn't leading a revolutionary charge, but I was always that one Black person that was in the meeting or in the classroom or invited to the program. And I'm like, that's me. I'm that spook, and I need to be able to educate Black folks that look like me to understand there's a whole nother world around that you don't even understand. You don't even get. So, and that causes a level of stress too, because that puts a lot of pressure on me to help my folks understand this is how we get controlled and dominated. You know, you want to talk about Donald Trump, which sure, we can talk about him all day, but the person who's on the people on the school board, the people who's down at the city office who are dictating what goes in your neighborhood, if they're going to build a bike path on your street, the people who are controlling controlling when your trash is picked up. The people who are controlling what zone your child gets to go to school in, those people have a huge more impact on your life than Donald Trump does. But you're focusing on Trump. You need to be focusing on whoever is in that seat in your district who has all this control over you. But we don't do that because we haven't been cultivated to do so. We've been cultivated to respond to things that get us emotionally charged, like Trump, right? And we don't focus on the things that matter to us day to day, right? We are really quick to hop on a trend versus hop on what substance and what actually impacts our life on a day to day. So I say all that to say we've been cultivated to not focus on the things that really pull the levers and drive our lives versus the things that really don't, that make us feel good because we said something, or we pushed against the narrative like Joe Biden or whatever the case may be.
Oh yeah. That guy. And so many thoughts came up when you were just talking. And I do want to get to the historical drama piece, but as soon as you start talking,
it's all connected.
Ideas start coming up. I'm just like, oh, another thing. Thing. But when you were talking about showing up locally and what's going on a local level and being that one Black person in the room. Yeah. In my career, before I started a podcast, I was in the world of politics.
Okay.
And I started off my career working on I worked for a state elected official. And I was the person that I was the constituent services liaison. So the fancy word is saying I was the person that was out in the community. And I remember, this is I don't know if this was defining because I still believe, I was just like, if I work hard up the ladder in politics and become like a policy director, like then I can have change. So even though I experienced the story that I'm going to tell you, I still believed that the system could work. I just had to be in the right position, which that's a whole nother story. But
sure.
So I had to go to this event, and it was a community meeting with all these developers who they were going to tear down a housing project. Mm-hmm. So yay, I get to go to that. Mm-hmm. Yep, all and the residents who live there,
yep,
there, right? And so I don't think there was any elected official that showed up. I think they sent staff, which you can understand why. It was a very tense conversation. Yep. So anyway, so I went to this meeting, and at first I looked at my job as an opportunity to connect with my community and also just for networking purposes. Mm-hmm. So even though I was concerned about going, I still thought, okay, I can, at least the concerns that the residents will bring up, I can bring that back to my boss, and maybe very naive was I. Yeah. But I thought, okay, I can take these ideas back and maybe we can do something different. So the project that they were looking to tear down, these developers, and I believe Syracuse University was buying the property, or at least that was in discussion. If that wasn't the result, if that wasn't on the table at that point.
Gotcha.
So the developers are there. They had like their posters and signs and making everything like, this is going to be great for the community, and this is going to be, economics. This is going to help this community economically. And so all these people are sitting there. They're like, but where am I going to send my children? Like,
right.
Syracuse is very much so divided. There are gangs. There are people always like, there's gangs in upstate New York. Like, yes,
there's gangs everywhere.
There's gangs everywhere, right? And so there's certain type of certain sides of town, if you will, that if somebody finds out that you're from another side, that could be a huge problem. Like when you decide to walk down the street or go to school. Mm-hmm. So a lot of parents were concerned about these turf wars and like, what's going to happen to my kid? I can't just pick up and move to a certain side of the city, because that could endanger my child. So they were bringing that up. And the backstory is, these projects, were they in horrible condition? Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was mold, there was rodents. Right. I mean, it was in bad condition for years. The interesting thing is, the argument was that it needed to be torn down because it was in bad condition.
Yeah.
It was basically just neglected.
Right.
And so all of the, so parents are there and members of the community, and they're devastated because they're like, first of all, I don't have the money to pick up and move.
Right.
For security, first month's rent, all of that. And I was just sitting there hearing all of this, and I was the only Black person from the elected official's office. The other elected official staff that were there, they were all white.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with the residents who looked just like me.
Yeah.
And I felt angry, powerless.
Yep.
And I just knew, even though I kind of was like, you know, maybe if I take their concerns back to my boss, like maybe he could say something. But you know how, like, that's what I thought. But I was like, I don't even know, because these are developers.
Right.
Like, this is just part of the process. You have to do your community engagement.
Decision was pretty much already made. Yeah. Just at that stage, from what I know, the decision's already in motion. It's just what path do we take to meet the least resistance, right? So how bad of a political hit is this going to be for me to get reelected? Because once the developers are having their signs up, they've already staked their claim. They're coming to move forward with this. Right. And, you know, at that point, it's just formalities.
Yeah. And so what you were saying, like being in that room is just like the only Black person. And it was interesting because so many of my family members like, oh, Kai, it's great. Like, you work for elected official and you can, they thought I was like a mover and a shaker. And I'm just like, oh, but you don't understand. It's a very lonely, isolating feeling. So just to your point of being like that only Black person in that space, and the trauma that also comes with it, because then people that look like you are looking at you. Yeah. Like, so can you do something?
Right.
They think that you have some type of level to do something. And I'm just looking at them like, we actually are in the same boat, because I can't do anything either.
There are two things that come to mind that you're speaking of. One, for me, is when we talk about trauma, let's connect it right back to the topic of the show, is trauma. One thing that we have to keep in mind is that the continuous trauma hits us on various different levels. It's not just how white folks directly impact us, right? It's not the vigilante killing or the police killing. The trauma is on the professional level, it's on a spiritual level, it's on a community level, it's on educational. There's so many different levels that the trauma sees its way through from this whole system of racism, white supremacy. And the other thing is the stress that comes with that trauma, the stress of being a Black professional, because you're talking about it from a perspective of being in politics. There are people who go through corporate America, people who work in nonprofits, people who work in government entities, people who work in education, who have the same feeling. I'm the Black person who works at the school, and I see the things that happen to the Black students in the school, or the Black parents in the school. You know, I'm the person who works at the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company, and I see how we're targeting this particular demographic of Black people with this product. But I'm the Black person who's in charge of marketing, or I'm the Black person in charge of sales or whatever. And that causes a level of stress, because now it's like, damn, I'm here just trying to do my job and, you know, find a professional field, but at the same time, I'm hurting my people. And what ends up happening is this is catch-22, and I've been trying to figure out a really good way to talk about this, because I know it's going to ruffle some feathers. But from a cultural standpoint, we have to make some changes, because when we do get folks like yourself, folks like me in these positions, we need the community to be in a position ready to move. One thing that has happened to us, and this is a part of our collective trauma, is we're always looking for a leader, right? Position to be a leader. Your position wasn't even set up for you to be a leader. It's to be a liaison. It's two different things, right? But eventually you would get to a level of being a leader if you would have stayed the course, but not at that point. The community doesn't see that. The community sees, oh, this girl working in politics. Oh, you with so-and-so? Oh, you but there's no understanding of how any of that stuff works, because they just don't have the information. And that's no fault to the community. But what would have been more impactful is if people from the community came organized and ready. All right, yes, these developers are coming, but we have these plumber contracts, we have these contractors ready to go. We have all these things in place ready to move forward. So when they come and they say, this is going to help build businesses, it's going to help do blah, 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 we're saying, okay, this is what we propose, and we expect this percentage of what's being spent to develop this area. But that's not how we come. We come with, what y'all gonna do about these gas those developers looking at you like, shit, I don't live in this community. What you gonna do about them gangs?
Like,
That's your kids. That ain't my kids.
From the state.
Yeah.
Like,
We just came to rebuild these buildings. I don't know nothing about no gang problem. That's just, but I mean, I say that in a joking manner, but that's really how they look at it, because this is business. This ain't about what your kid's going through. This is about, these buildings are raggedy. We gonna build some new buildings because we getting this contract from the city. And if you want to live here, you can. But if you can't afford it, that's on you. Now, that looks like that can be seen as racism, white supremacy, but it also can be seen as business. And when you haven't been educated or informed on how business works on that level, everything that you experience will be racist.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that ends up getting us in a lot of trouble, gets me in a lot of trouble, because when I talk about that, people are like, oh, you being a coon. I'm not being a coon. I'm just telling you, from somebody who sits at the table, they do that stuff to white people all the time. They will cut a white person's head off quick. But guess what? Them white people know that, and what do? They organize and they try to fight back all the time. We see strikes with nurses, teachers, all that. What do you think that is? That's just coming to cut their heads off. This is the animal. This is the beast that we are in. And as Black folks, we are so disjointed and not organized. Everything that happens to us definitely looks like racism. And sometimes it's just straight business, but sometimes it is racist. But at the same time, if we're not organized as a people to combat that and move forward towards that, we will always get the short end of the stick. So,
yeah. And so why is that? Like, why do we come with more like, so what can you do about this? How, like, looking for someone outside of our community. And I hopefully I don't get in trouble for this.
You always will get in trouble for this conversation.
I know. Because we understand the construct in which we live. We're not denying that
right.
However, since we realize that's the construct, and even some of us, maybe we don't even understand actually the system of white supremacy unless it's very blatant.
Right in our
I
face.
even see then people still ask questions, but again,
yeah.
It's 2020. But so why do we show up with more questions than getting, or does that stem from the historical trauma and that we're not really growing? And I want to be careful how I say this. That we're not really looking at things and analyzing it and saying, okay, listen, maybe marching is not going to work. Maybe holding signs that served its purpose when we did it.
Right.
But now the system has evolved, so we must evolve with it. So why are we seem kind of like stuck in doing the same thing over and over again? And this is as a group, because some of us are like, no, we ready, we definitely got these things different. But for those it seems like a lot of us, we're kind of stuck in this marching, hold a sign, hold hands,
let your voice be heard, lift every voice and sing. Right.
So does that stem from how we were conditioned
absolutely
of our experience in this country?
Absolutely. A lot of that has to do with our religious influence of Christianity, but we're not gonna get too deep into that. Ooh, there's not more.
Get my little podcast canceled before it gets started.
A lot of it does have to do with that, though, because when you're cultivated to believe in a particular way and understand that when you have pain inflicted upon you, that it's okay because you're going to get rewarded later, not right now, then you don't do things that you need to do. You do not organize and move forward. One of the things that unfortunately we have developed as a culture is accepting, like I said earlier, the short end of the stick, or accepting pain, accepting to not have a lot, accepting the lowest rung on the ladder. We have learned to just accept that because we expect that we're not going to get anything better, because we view white folks as the standard and as the goal. And if they can pay attention to us, we're good with it. What me and you are talking about at the moment is that is not working anymore. Just letting your voice be heard and letting people be, see your frustration doesn't get the job done. We are dealing on a political and financial level where we have to really start hitting people where it hurts, and our strategies need to be, they need to be brought to more modern times. I'll say it that way. I want to say they need to be manifested to something that's actually going to make a difference today, because those old strategies, they've already figured out ways around that. They figured, we cannot have another Martin Luther King. We can't have that. So we're going to buy those leaders off first before they get to that level. And that's where they get Black folks like me who have a little bit of intellect, and they say, oh, that's a smart one, let's get him now, because if he gets to that level to have a voice, he's going to be a problem. Right? They figured that out already, but we haven't figured that out, that they figured it out, right? We're still holding on to the victories that we've had, the small victories that we had, and thinking that they're going to continue when they're not. We're not going to win anything like that. The other thing is, we have, and this is where the religion piece comes in, I was talking about earlier, we're always looking for something outside of ourselves to come in and fix our problems. We have to be able to, have whatever outside entities inside of us that are inside of us come out and fix our problems for us, right? We're here. I mean, that's the gift that we were given from whatever creator that we want to think of is our life. And you have to figure out the best way to live that life to move forward. Because if we keep waiting on the blessing, if we keep waiting on a miracle, it's not happening. We keep getting our butts whipped. We keep losing people. We keep getting defeated in the justice system because we're not understanding that we are the gift that is here. Other people understand that. That's why they utilize our skills, our talents, and our genius all the time. It's important for us to start from a cultural angle, start, pushing our young people to do things with their genius, become lawyers. We should be, as Black people, as much injustice as we've gone through, I would just say in the last 25 years, I ain't even going to talk about since we've been here. The number one profession that we should all be going to is law school. We should just right away. What you gonna be when you grow up, little man? I'm gonna be a lawyer. What kind of lawyer? Whatever type we need. Like, that's it. We don't need to. We shouldn't be focusing on nothing but lawyers. But literally, if we just said 2020 or our 2040 strategy in the next 20 years is to make sure that 30% of our children are born are going to be lawyers. They're going to go into politics, education, and skilled labor. So because we're going to need people to fix stuff and build stuff. If we just focus on that, our community would look different. We just had an initiative that says this is 40-40. Babies born in 2020, in the next 20 years, we expect them to be going or on the track for these types of fields. Our community will look different. And the folks around us will respond to us different because they don't expect us to do anything better. So they would have to do something. And if it's about racism, white supremacy, we're going to start moving forward. As Black people, we have been designated to be the subjugated group of people in this system, okay? For capitalism to work, you have to have a lower class. There's no better lower class than a class that autopilot to stay stuck where they're at. And we've been conditioned to just take the bare minimum and be stuck where we're at. And it helps the system work. That's why they joke and say, if we give these people reparations, they don't joke and say that. We say this. We get reparations, we ain't gonna do nothing but give it right back to them. And there's a lot of people that believe that. And guess what? There's probably some truth to that. Right. Because we're a consumer-based class. If we can't buy stuff, we will lose our minds. That's done by design to keep us there. The civil rights movement wasn't about being able to sit at lunch counters with white folks. But they seen that was such an important thing for us, and that was where the fight was to be able to shop and eat with white folks. They said, damn, that's all they want? They just want to spend their money with us? Let's do it. Bring it on in. And now we are trapped in that. So yeah.
And I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this. I think it was that being able, you already probably know where I'm going to go. Being able to spend money and shop where they shop and be able to go and buy a house next to, in a white neighborhood, and also interracial sex, that all of that kind of said, oh, we have reached the promised land. And when that happens, we just totally took our eyes out. I mean, maybe that was the goal, maybe consciously, subconsciously, that was what we wanted.
Maybe. And I mean, we've been cultivated. I keep using that term because it's a deliberate term I'm using. We've been socialized, cultivated to see white as a standard. So the closest we can get to white, the better we see our lives. If our God is white, if our teachers are white, if the law is white, if the judge is white, if the is all these things that impact our life on a day-to-day are white, why would you not want to be white, right? If you have a light-skinned cousin or somebody who's quote unquote fair skin,
Mhm.
and their life is a little bit better than yours, you want that too. And that's where that self quote unquote hatred comes from, what I call anti-blackness, because the farther away from black that you get, the better your life ends up being.
Mhm.
And that continues on till today, unfortunately. So yes, we strive to have more of a white life, and that's why we see success as being white, because anything successful has to be through white hands or through white dollars. It doesn't have to be like that. We are in a time where we have the internet that can propel us all, right? Whether you're white or not, people don't even have to know what you look like, honestly.
Mhm.
But we're so stuck and get cultivated from that white to be successful, in order to be smart, anything. If I was a white man named Brandon Jones, I got the same name, but I'm white, and I'm talking the same stuff I'm talking now, I'll be a multi-million. I'll be bigger than I've been D'Angelo. I'll be the biggest white person out here. It'd be me and Brene Brown to be on tour, taking over. I'll be like Ellen, dancing.
It's true.
Doing the wobble.
It's so true. What you're saying is so true. And I think the one thing is, and I believe again that we had brought this up in season 1, which if you guys haven't listened to season 1 of my many episodes with Brandon, you definitely want to check that out. But we were talking about the importance of taking time to reflect and look at your actions, and just begin to observe how you kind of move and show up in the world. And we were saying how we as a community, we never really had an opportunity to do that because we were under stress. We're living under this constant stress. So you're basically in survival mode. Like there is no time to sit back and say, oh, look at my actions. Maybe next time I should respond differently. There was no time to do that because you were just trying to get through each day and in survival mode. So now that we have that space to do that, that's like a new concept to us. Like
Yeah.
let's sit and think this through and develop a plan, and not just kind of start moving forward because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow or later today. Would you agree with that, that this is just basically a new way of thinking for us as a group, of course?
Yeah, collectively, we've been conditioned to be reactionary. White person calls you the N-word, you respond, right? You get a job because someone gave it to you, you respond. What I try to do in my work and what I think is most helpful for us is to be proactive. Black excellence does not have to come at the acceptance of whiteness. We can do what we want to do, how we want to do it at our own level of agency. We can do those things, and we have the power, the genius, and tools to do them. We just culturally don't have the permission. We have not culturally given ourselves permission to move forward and evolve beyond the trauma. The trauma is there. It's not going anywhere. The domestic violence I've seen personally, that's my intergenerational trauma, ain't going nowhere. The historical trauma that we've experienced collectively, slavery, Jim Crow, yesterday, right? But that can't stop my level of being happy or content. Doesn't stop my level of wanting something better or seeking success. Doesn't stop the care and joy that I have for my family and trying to develop my daughters. Doesn't stop, or even supporting my wife. Doesn't stop any of in my actions. Understand what happened. I have to accept it and deal with it on an emotional level that is most constructive and healthy for myself. But at the end of the day, I still have responsibilities I have to take care of and have to move forward. So in essence, I'm saying accepting the pain, but I'm also saying don't get stuck there, because it is what it is. You can't change it at this point, but you can change your response to it. And that's what I mean by being more proactive.
Yeah, and so there's one other thing I do want to move forward because I know we have to. I looked at the time. So there's one thing that I wanted to get your opinion on. So I was reading this report about trauma and your reaction to it, and it wasn't really talking from like a race lens. It was just generally speaking about trauma. And so it said that looking at the reptilian brain in survival mode, when you first experience trauma, there's fight, flight, freeze, then shut down and collapse. And so I was kind of looking at that shutdown and collapse when I think about the trauma that our community experienced. And it wasn't just an isolated incident where like the trauma occurred and then we were able to then go into a community that was accepting and equal, if you will. And, you know, then the trauma kind of ended. This has been continuous trauma. So my question is, that shutdown and collapse part, I was just wondering, is that, generally speaking, maybe kind of where we are now as a community, where it's just kind of like this, just not really knowing what direction to go in? Like if you're just totally shut down and mentally, maybe that's even that, what is it, the racial
Battle fatigue.
that could probably fit in there too. I want to get your opinion on that. Obviously, I'm not a therapist. But just kind of like our
Shutdown and
again to think things through as we talked about and say, okay, the old way, as we said, marching and what have you, and that type of protesting, it did work, it served its purpose, but now we have to develop a new way of handling and addressing white supremacy. But if we're in a total state of like shutdown collapse because of this trauma and continuous trauma, is that something that we should start to address? And if so, how would we do that?
Yeah, great question. I see the shutdown and collapse a little different.
Okay.
I would say when it comes to shutdown, this is when you see people get into like addictions or they get, unfortunately, they get incarcerated, or they have serious pristine mental illness. So there's a response to the stressors that they've had that have led them to this new state, or this new level of coping with that stress. The collapse is ultimately death. That's how I feel. That's how we relate when it comes to us.
Okay.
Is you have death or suicidal ideation, where you have thoughts of suicide, or you attempted suicide. I would say that's when you're at that place. But you know, that's, for me, that's collapse.
Okay.
But the shutting down piece is something that not a lot of us get to because we have these safeguards culturally that have been built in that we don't get to that. Well, we stay in that fight, flight, or freeze. And unfortunately, if you look at our culture has been a trauma response. Black culture has been a trauma response. All right. From the way we, you know, how we deal with our stressors, how we engage in relationships, how we worship religions or spirituality, all these different things that we do have been in a response to racism and white supremacy, which keeps us at that fight, flight, or freeze. We are under a consistent state of trauma. And again, that's why I say we have to be more proactive versus just reactive to it. Understand what it is, recognize it, and even accept it, even when it doesn't feel good, but figure out the best way to cope and move forward that we can, because it's there. Continue to be there until we develop enough organization to move beyond it. You know, there is an ability for us to end a lot of those intergenerational trauma things that happen, but the historical trauma piece will be there. Intergenerational trauma is like, you know, domestic violence as a kid and her mom experienced domestic violence as a kid, or sexual abuse. You can end those types of things, but the historical trauma that we feel collectively, those things are harder to end or heal from. That's a healing process. That's a journey that we need to go through. And that's one of the most important things that I try to communicate and help people with, is understand that this is a journey. Those things happen, but we got to keep moving forward. And it doesn't mean that we're going to reach a destination. It just means that you got to keep on moving and keep on coping and figuring out different ways to deal with the pain. So for me, you know, in that place of just feeling defeated, those things can happen, but we all don't get to that place.
Okay. And so thank you very much for explaining that, because that's important. So if a family member is saying, okay, I'm aware of what the society that we live in. I understand how white supremacy continues to evolve so that the structure can maintain. And I know we have to start winding down our conversation. So if a person is listening and say, I get it, I got it, but how do I talk to my family? Because my family member, auntie, unc, is saying, I can't believe what they're doing to, you know, I can't believe that the cops are doing what they're doing, or I can't believe that they're calling the police on this this young boy who was just walking down the street. I mean, and these are people that grew up like in the 60s or 50s or what have you. So, and they're just like, I can't believe this is still like, why do they keep doing that? And I'm in many groups on Facebook, and I see a lot of, especially like older Black men and Black women saying, like, I don't know why they keep doing this. I don't know if they don't understand the system, or if, or what. Sometimes I just get frustrated. I'm like, how do you not understand? How are you asking these same questions at 60 years old? But if somebody is listening, how can they start to break this down to their family, have a conversation to explain to them, okay, this is racial trauma. This is what it looks like. This is how it plays out. This is why we get treated this way. How could they start to have that conversation?
Excuse me. So, one of the unfortunate things is you have to explain it to people who've already experienced it beyond your age if you're a younger person, right? So that makes it tough. But really, unfortunately, like many things, people have to experience it themselves to really start to understand it. They have to go through their own experience to get it broken down. One of the things that I've noticed since I've been kind of in this pro-Black space is a lot of people who, they run into Mr. Fuller or Dr. Francis Curse Welsing or Dr. Kaba or somebody of that nature who has a lot of pro-Black rhetoric, Dr. Joy DeGruy. And then they get on a binge and they start to get this information and they start feeling good and they start feeling like, okay, this stuff is happening. Like, this is for real. And then they want to share with the
right.
Not ready to hear that message, because if they were, they would have introduced it to you. Right.
Very true.
I would recommend not trying to force the information on people. I know you want to, because it's like, wake up. Like, you're my grandma, I love you. You're my aunt, I love you. My dad, I love you. Don't do that. They're not ready. What you should do is continue to preach your message, make your post on Facebook, share your videos, wear your t-shirts, whatever you got to do. Because when it comes to them, when it hits them in the face, then they're going to come to you because they know that you get it. Now they're awakened to it. A lot of older folks say things like, I can't believe they're still doing this, because they have seen the progress since they were younger. They have seen things get better, and they wouldn't expect it to still be as bad as it was when they were younger. They've seen Barack Obama. They've seen Black people go to college and get professional jobs. They've seen being able to get in unions and get insurance and buy cars, and they've seen all this stuff, get credit, get a mortgage. What is that? Like, they've seen this stuff, right? They've seen being able to sit wherever you want on a bus or even ride a bus. They've seen this progress, but then they see Tamir Rice, or they see Michael Brown or whatever. We've seen these things, and they're like, wow, I can't believe this is still going on, because I thought we advanced past this. But for every small victory, we still have people who suffer. We still have unfortunate things that happen. We have people who die. We have all these things that take place. So it feels like every time we take 2 steps forward, we take 5 steps back with some type of racist or racial incident that takes place. So it becomes confusing for a lot of people who aren't seeing how the system becomes more and more refined as we move forward, because they've seen small victories, right? They see me. I'm a Black man. I hop on the internet and I'm talking, and, I got a professional job, and, I'm middle class and all that stuff. But at the same time, all that stuff can take away from me like this with one accusation, no proof. One of my white exes can say, that boy raped me in 4, and my life could be done just like that. Boom, the Bill Cosby treatment. But they don't understand the refinement that takes place in that, right? They don't understand that this system is more refined than it used to be. So when they see that blatant thing, that blatant racism that takes place, it's like, oh my God, this is still happening, because we've been soothed through the refinement. We've been given enough to make us feel good. When Barack Obama got elected as president, the campaign was on hope. And we ate it up.
Yeah, we did.
Definitely voted for Barack Obama. Don't get it twisted. But the reason why we were out there and we voted at record numbers is because we never thought that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more symbolism than substance.
Right. Right.
And that's where we get caught, is in symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
And then when when substantial things come up and we need to deal with it, we're not ready because we've always been given symbols.
Yeah.
So that's why they say these things, because when you talk about a cop shooting an unarmed black male or an unarmed black woman
Mm-hmm.
and getting off,
Mm-hmm.
that's substance. We have to have lawyers who can help deal with those things. Not the usual suspect lawyers that always get called around the country and never get results.
Always.
I can talk about those people, Benjamin Crump, but that's a whole other thing. We have a lot of folks like that, but we have to, again, we have to be able to set our community up for protection.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we don't understand how to protect our community because we've always been taken care of by other people,
Mm-hmm.
and we've always been given things by other people instead of getting it for ourselves and treating ourselves. But we have so much anti-blackness within the community, anything more for ourselves, and we don't trust ourselves because we've been taught and conditioned to not trust each other. So that's why you will get conversations or comments from elders. It's like, I can't believe this is happening, because the refinement has given us look at symbols and we just say that's good enough because we got a little piece of the pie and not substance, and we're not able to concretely defend and protect our community and move our community forward. So that was a long answer to your question, but I hope
I think that was great, and I know we're going to wrap up, but
Yeah.
also, so one, we're going to wrap up. The other part is I try not to put a time on the podcast episodes, but I have to say this because of the point that you raised. So this podcast will air sometime in September. I'm sorry, this episode, I'm saying podcast. This episode will air sometime in September. But right now, what we're dealing with is this whole thing that Biden said, that comment that he made about, basically, if you're not sure who you're voting for at this point, then you're not Black. And it's so interesting because I see so many Black folks come out and say, well, that's true. That is true. And then also say, well, I really don't want to vote for him, but it's better than nothing. And I'm looking and I'm saying, but Trump has said very similar. I mean, the Trump and Biden are not far from each other, in my opinion. And so it's just interesting to hear the back and forth in our community as we discuss this Biden figure as far as what he has stood for his whole political career, and the policies that he has supported and who he has decided to be in his circle of influence. And I think it just speaks to your point when you said, like, we're okay with just
crumbs,
with the crumbs. And I think that's like, there is no demand. It's like, well, here's Biden. Well, all right, we don't want him. We don't want to vote for him. So we don't want to vote for him. We know what his crime bill. We talk about the whole situation with Anita Hill, many statements that he's made, but it's like, but hey, what are we going to do? We might as well just vote for him so we don't have Trump. At least Trump, you know what you're getting. Like, Trump is not hiding who he is. Like, this is, and I'm not saying vote for him at all. I'm saying you know what you're getting. But as you said, we've been so conditioned to just accept kind of what's presented to us is like, well, this is best for you. This is the best option. Instead of thinking about this and analyzing this person and saying, wait a second.
Yeah.
Why is this person the best option? And who's telling me that it's the best option when people that look like me, they seem to not have benefited from this guy being in office at all.
Yeah. We accept chitlins when it comes to politics. It's the worst part of the pig, but we're going to clean it up. We're going to soak it. We're going to cook it good. We're going to put some hot sauce on it. We're going to enjoy it. And we're going to make it a delicacy.
Right.
And that's what happens to us when you're not organized. You just take what you're given, even if it is the guts of the pig. And the political pig, we've been getting the guts for so long that we don't even realize it. And we should be insulted that he comes on the platform and even opens his mouth to say something. And if you listen to that interview, he was super arrogant through the whole thing, the way he was talking to Charlemagne. Yeah. Charlemagne should have checked him, but he didn't. But that's a whole nother thing. But again, as a Black person who thinks you should be insulted by listening to that 8 minutes of trash that you were given, chitlins, political chitlins, that you were given, you should be insulted because as a Black person, your intellect, your genius demands more respect than what he was given, and nobody should vote for him. I don't care what party he's.
Yeah.
Just from the fact that you were disrespected.
Mm-hmm.
But we accept that. And we argue amongst ourselves to say, well, it's better than nothing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can starve politically, or you can say, all right, we're gonna our voice be quote unquote heard, even if we don't get the result that we want. Mm-hmm. So we can, at some point, we have to stop accepting the crumbs or the chitlins, as I'm saying here. Like
yeah.
But again, this is how we've been cultivated. Is we only think one direction. Which candidate is going to give us the most value from a communal standpoint? That's who we should be voting for. I don't care what party they're part of. Who's going to the best? Right. That's the person that we could attach our wagon to. But we have and this is something we can talk about another podcast episode, is that we have what I call emotional extremism, where we are extreme when it comes to emotions. We're either all in or we're all out. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to Democratic parties and politics on that level, it doesn't matter who says something to us. We're all in because that's Democrats and it's anti-Trump, right? So we're all out on that. So we'll just take all the disrespect. I got hot sauce in my bag. That was a whole other thing that someone said. I don't know if Biden was trying to.
I think you're trying to.
Hillary Clinton on that one.
Yeah.
But again, you're getting disrespected, and you don't even know that you're getting disrespected. Mm-hmm. But me, Black man, I come in your house and I say, look at y'all up in here. Y'all need to get y'all shit together. I didn't even talk about what you gotta get together. I just say that. Mm-hmm. You're gonna be like this and get him up out of here. You're gonna treat me like all types of stuff because I've insulted you, but you don't even realize that he insulted your vote, your intelligence, and your existence. Mm-hmm. And we have to look at that the same way that if a Black person say you need to get your stuff together, right? Because that's what he pretty much said. Mm-hmm. If you Black and you vote for me, you ain't Black. Who is he to determine who is Black or not? Mm-hmm. And why is he talking so disrespectfully on his platform? And why are we even listening to him? Right. Respect yourself, Black people, because if you don't, nobody else will. And unfortunately, we have developed a culture around being disrespected and accepting being disrespected. So we have to do better.
Yes. And I think, and I know we're going to wrap, I think this is my third time saying we're going to wrap up, but we really going to wrap up now. I think that's so important, is doing what we said on previous episodes, is doing that self-work.
Absolutely.
Once you start to value yourself, once we as individuals start doing our own healing work, then when we meet and come together as a community, we'll get stuff done. But if we're not doing the work individually, we're going to just keep going in circles. 20 years from now, we're going to have the same conversation. So it's so important to do that individual work, so that way when we come together, we can move the point forward we can move the ball forward as a collective.
For my first master's degree, I was in a community psychology program, and my master's thesis was on Black male leadership. And I was trying to think, as a Black man, how can I make the community better? And I had this vision that if every Black man in the household started to improve themselves, the family would automatically start to improve as well. And if one family is starting to improve, the community is improving. Mm-hmm. If the community improves, just in that neighborhood, then the whole community of Black people start improving, and then just kind of spirals out from there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, that was a revolutionary thought, that if just one person decided to just make their life better, at least the people in their house out. That could be me just doing wishful thinking. But I think if one Black person, doesn't matter if it's a male or a female, it doesn't matter. But if one Black person say, you know what, I'm gonna stop smoking cigarettes. I know it's gonna be hard, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna clean my diet up and eat a little bit better, and I'm gonna practice yoga. Mm-hmm. And we had 1 million Black people who, took an oath to just do that. And now you got their family looking at them like, what? You eat these ribs no more? What you doing? Yoga. You doing breathing? What you doing? Right? Oh, you ain't smoking. You don't want to, bum a square. Now be doing, and maybe I shouldn't eat so much pork. And now they're starting to make some shifts and some changes. The young people see it and they're like, that's a way to live because this is an upstanding adult. You know, they take care of me, they love me. I should do the same thing. I see this with my own kids. My kids want to do stuff that I do all the time. My kids right now, today, I swear, they want to start a YouTube channel.
Awesome.
So they were plotting today. This is no lie. I'm eavesdropping on my kids. They're like, all right, this is how we get our own YouTube channels. We got to do a family channel first. So we're going to call it the Jones family. And then me and you, Audrey, this is my oldest. Me and you to create YouTube. Now they could just say, hey, we want to start a YouTube channel. They don't have to do all that, but they're thinking because they're like, okay, how do we get this going for ourselves? Because they see it from their parents and they see their parents enjoy it and have fun. And that's what they want to do, right? Now, I'm just using that as an example of the influence you have as an adult when you're doing things that are healthy. You have young people watch, adults watching you, and they want to know how to do it too or what they can do as well. And that's the same thing we do with our healing. You start taking those steps on your journey to heal, people will take notice and they will want to emulate it. You know, imitation is the best form of flattery, right? We just have to be able to have the courage to take those steps. So I'll stop there and let you wrap up the program.
No, that was great. That was great. When you were talking about just people watching you, it reminds me of Mfudishi. I don't know if you probably heard of him before. And he's like teaches a lot about like Kemetic spiritual systems and all of that stuff. And he was saying that what he changed his diet. I believe he said he's vegan. He does like martial arts and he, dresses like in, I guess, like African garb. I don't know the correct term for it. And so he said at first his friend was like, what are you doing? Why are you eating that weird food? Or why are you doing this? So, and he said he didn't push it on him. He didn't say, oh, you guys should change your diet. All he did was live his life. And they noticed how a lot of the sicknesses that typically affect our community, like the high blood pressure, diabetes, they saw how he did not have any of those type of ailments. How he just, didn't have life of pain, didn't have like financial issues. So they wanted to know, so what are you doing? What do you eat? Like because they just saw how his life was evolving and they saw where they were and they said, okay, I need to know what you're doing because I want to start making changes because you seem like you're in a good place. You seem happy. It was just watching what he was doing. And that led a lot of people in his family, as he said, to start making changes with their diet, start exercising, start practicing meditation, just through him living his life.
Just living,
so I think that's so important.
Absolutely. Again, when you make it hits home, right? Goes and she goes get a checkup. She's got arthritis and she's like, man, my arms, my hands is hurting. You say, you know what, grandma, you can get this kind of, oil, you can rub that on there and it might feel good. Just try it. I'll bring you some when I come over next weekend. Just put a little bit on there, for 2 days and let me know how it feels. Boom. Now you got grandma hooked and now grandma's like, that boy, he know voodoo. That boy doing all this stuff, right? And now grandma don't know no better. She just like, he doing something crazy. But now grandma has influence on the family and everybody's like, well, you know what? My knees hurt. Let me get some knees. And now you created a spiral of being healthy. Happens all the time. Happens in my family. It happens when you start taking care of yourself. People take notice and they want to know what you're doing. First, they're going to say it's weird because it's out of the norm. And then they're going to think like, okay, maybe it is working. See this person getting better, and then they're going to come and ask. So I wouldn't push any of this information on anybody. Just keep doing your thing. Make your post on social media. Like I said, wear your t-shirts, put the whatever, wear your products, do your thing, and people will come to you because you're going to be a magnet of just joy, bliss, and abundance, and people want that, and they're going to come to you for it.
So true. And that how you package that's like a perfect ending to the episode, I think. And so, Brandon, for those that are listening, they want to reach out to you, which I'm sure they will after this conversation.
Sure.
How can they find you on social media and on also your website?
Yep. So it's really easy to find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. at by Brandon Jones. That's BY Brandon, BRANDON, Jones, JONES. So if you put that in the search, you can find me. And then if that's too hard for you, you can just go to my website, and that's Jegna.org, and Jegna spelled JEGNA.org. And there you can find, I have audiobooks, I have courses. If you have any questions for me, you can connect with me there. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel via my website. So I look forward to connecting with you all. And thank you for here listening to this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming back. And hopefully I'll have you again for a couple episodes this season.
Whenever you need me, just let me know.
4 episodes came out of this conversation. A lot of them was like, oh, that's going to be for the next episode. So awesome.
Whenever you need me, I got your back.
Thank you. I always appreciate
Absolutely.
that. And thank you for listeners. Be sure to subscribe to the Healing Element podcast and also download today's episode. To find out more about me and services offered, please visit KaiMarie.com. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.